Anthony, you could have said something nice about me. It's all right, buddy. It's all right. Um, we are not born as calculators. We are born as storytellers. Numbers confound us, stories define us, and this important foundational insight into being a human being is largely lost on the wealth management industry. What I want to talk to you today about is the human experience of money and storytelling. And if we're going to talk about the human experience of money, that means we need to first process, well, what does it even mean to be a human being? And there are lots of fascinating answers. We're risk takers, we are meaning makers, we are time travelers, and we are storytellers. We are hardwired for story. And it's probably something that we take for granted, but story, in a way, is a decoder ring for the infinite amount of information and data that surrounds us. And I think we know that that has gotten even harder to navigate. And so what I want to share with you today is a workshop on storytelling for advisors. Let me start out by observing that the Certified Financial Planner curriculum just in the last 12 months created a category on behavioral finance and client psychology. It was 0% of the curriculum, and now it is 7% of the curriculum. There's going to be a lot of audience participation today, so I'm not going to ask the question, but I suspect that more than 7% of your practice is focused on client psychology, treating your clients like human beings, helping elevate them. Nonetheless, the door is open, a small 7% door. As I see it, as my team at Shaping Wealth and I see it, we as advisors and coaches are helping people along life's journey. We're helping them get to the places that they want to go, helping them imagine the places that they want to be. And on that journey, we play two roles, mechanic and guide. We are both mechanic and guide. We are craftspeople. The 93% of the CFP curriculum is very important. Financial planning is not commoditized. It is a skill. It could be done better or worse. It's very, very important, all right? So part of what we're doing is that we're serving as a mechanic. And so we're making sure that the car is running properly, that it's assembled properly, and that when you turn on the engine, it's ready to go. How do we know if it's pointed in the right direction? That's the guidance part, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And generally speaking, that's what we do at Shaping Wealth. We do content and coaching on the guidance elements of financial planning. So let's dive in. Everybody's gotten a little bit of Shaping Wealth stuff. If you haven't gotten a pencil, pad of paper, eraser, that kind of stuff, my colleague Jordan has it for you. And we're going to explore in the context of guidance, of being a guide, this idea that part of what you do is help people understand, tell, share, and edit their life stories. We listen to this every day. We absorb so much, their hopes, their fears, their joy, their aspiration. And in that role as someone who works with the client stories, I'm going to suggest that what all of you are is actually a ghostwriter. Yes, you're a planner. You are an organizer. You're a portfolio manager. You're lots of things. In fact, about a year ago, I sent a DM to a bunch of Twitter friends, for better or for worse. Many of my friends are financial advisors. And I asked the question, what do you do? Because most advisors I talk to come across as being incredibly busy, like hair on fire busy. What do you do? And I got like 32 words. Well, one word that I want, all the different things. One word that I'd like you to add to your vocabulary, in fact, the thesis of today's little session is that you are a ghostwriter. And ghostwriting, being alongside the author of their own story, is something that you can do better or worse, that it's just not an inspiration, that it's actually a skill. So our workshop today, the good folks at Advisor Circle and Future Proof said, hey, you want to do a workshop? I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So we're going to do a workshop. I think I know what that is. The skill that goes into being a ghostwriter is threefold, where I'm going to bring you along in the next 20, 25 minutes or so, is a three-step process or protocol that we use at Shaping Wealth when it comes to coaching advisors as storytellers. Read, write, edit. All right? That's what we're going to be doing. Read, write, edit. So the first thing I want everyone to do is to write down on their pad of paper a single word, a trivial word, something you had for breakfast, something that you saw on the beach, just a random thing of no great importance, okay? Please do that. The second thing I want you to write, so you're going to have 2 words on your piece of paper, is an emotion. It could be an emotion that you're feeling right now, like, when is this over? Boy, is it hot. Or it could be something, more profound. But write down an emotion that you are feeling or have felt in recent memory. Please erase both words. One of the themes that I want to pursue in today's workshop is that our stories are not written in pen but in pencil. We have the opportunity for agency, for growth, and for hope. And you, not just as editors, but authors yourself of your own story, have those things at your disposal. When we erase our words from pencil, look down. There are some shavings. There are elements of the letters that are indelible, right? We don't start with a blank slate. We never have a blank slate. But we want to embrace the spirit that we can make changes, that we have control, that we have agency, that we can embrace hope. And that is really powerful and important for us and for our clients. So, talking about story, this first step of read, what we want to do is give some thought to, well, why is story even important? It's because on our evolutionary path, we have used narrative from the very, very, very beginning to just make sense of this kind of crazy world. And the stories, as I said at the very start, they define us. They become part of who they are. These aren't things that we watch on television, okay? These aren't things that we just read in a book. These are things that become part of us so deeply that we're not fully conscious of, not fully aware of the stories that define who we are and the choices we make. All right, the next thing we're going to write down is our favorite story. Could be a book, could be a movie, could be anything that you want. But give it a moment's thought and write down your favorite story of all time. Anyone want to shout out their favorite story? Matilda? Curious George. Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. What was one over here? David and Goliath. Aravind in the house. All right. Let's think about the stories that land with us and the stories that get so deep inside us we forgot that we've been telling them all along. I want to quote you a passage, but 3 sentences from a book called Story Genius by a really good scholar named Lisa Kron, C-R-O-N. And she is one of a number of authors who instructs us on how important story is as that decoder ring of reality. And allow me to just read the quote. I can't memorize these things. I'm too damn old. And it's about what drives story forward. What are the stories that really land with us, that inspire? What drives stories forward is that it flows directly from how the protagonist is making sense of what's happening, how she struggles with, evaluates, and weighs what matters to her, and then makes hard decisions moving the action forward. All right? Making sense of what's going on in the world, struggling with hard decisions, figuring out what matters, making hard decisions, and hoping moving forward. When I read that passage, and I have a little bit of a warped mind on these things, when I read that passage a few months ago, I've been thinking about this a whole lot, you know what occurred to me? It sounds a lot like financial planning. We listen to people. What is it that they really want? Where is it that we're really going? And what we can observe is that the best stories involve two things: struggle and transformation. And so, Curious George, David and Goliath. We're not going to have a seminar on those particular narratives, but I'm guessing that many of the narratives that have really landed with you, there's some sort of transformation, there's some opportunity for growth, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, but good story involves transformation. So that's the read section of our protocol. Now we're going to move to the write section. There are lots of ways to tell our life story, and Jordan, if you want to start passing everything out, and Courtney or Leanne, I don't know if you helped because there's a lot of people here. But there's a lot of ways that we can work with our clients, but also work with ourselves to think about the stories that are meaningful to us, and in the somewhat narrower vein, to talk about where money fits into a meaningful life. What is our relationship with money? Because number one, we're probably not going to ask a client to write their life story generally, and we might not even ask them to tell us their money story. We can maybe in Q&A talk about the best strategies for doing that, but generally speaking, we want to listen in a way where we hear their life story, and to what extent do we want to edit, ghostwrite, and so forth. One element of this is that if you're going to take seriously the art of ghostwriting in the general spirit that we serve not only as mechanics, as guides, we ourselves have to write our own money stories. So Josh Brown and I, a couple years ago, published a book. Actually, some of the authors are here today. A book of brief essays, 1,500-word essays or so, where we went to 25 prominent financial planners, and we said, how do you invest your money? How do you make your money decisions? Josh wrote a great blog about this some time ago, and I texted him, and I was like, that's awesome. And it was really, he revealed a lot, and we began to talk like, oh, let's get a book together. And so we called 25 friends. And as we edited the book, there was a bunch of interesting themes, but we're not going to talk about the themes, we're going to talk about the process. And generally, some of the reactions were, no one's ever asked me. We are financial professionals, we are financial planners, but no one's ever asked me what my relationship with money is, and you're asking a hard question. And so no one's ever asked me. This is really hard. And at the end of the process, I'm really glad that I did it. We do comparable storytelling workshops at Shaping Wealth, and it's very similar. I'm curious, has anyone here gone through a formal money story writing exercise? Okay, I know you have. Not many hands went up. If we're going to be guides, we must first be the heroes of our own journey. We have to decide, where are the villains? Where is the treasure? Where are the dragons? And so in the book with Josh, but also just what we see in our day-to-day practice, you're asking me questions that I ask my clients all the time, but no one's ever asked me. It's a powerful moment. It's a vulnerable moment. But as the matron saint of Shaping Wealth, Brene Brown, says, vulnerability is the source of courage. And we can choose to go there if we want to, right? So what we're going to do now, because this is awesome and absurd, and the beach, and what the hell is really going on, right? No questions about your mother or any deep dives. But one thing we can do is enter the story writing process with a little bit of fun. And so we're going to do some money Mad Libs. Jordan's handed out a sheet. If any of you haven't gotten one, raise your hand. But I'm going to pause for a minute, 90 seconds or so. I'm going to stop talking. You're welcome. And give you guys the chance to start filling these out. By the way, who here loved Mad Libs growing up? Many more people than have written their money story. All right, so come up with your nouns and your verbs and your adjectives and all that kind of stuff. And I will ask in about a minute, who wants to volunteer something really good, really silly, really fun, or very revealing? Jackie, you don't have a worksheet. You're all out? So one element of the read, write, edit process is to recognize that as humans, we come back to the same stories over and over and over again. The linguists and anthropologists who study this say there's basically only 6 stories that have ever really been told. Rags to riches, riches to rags, Cinderella, Oedipus, Icarus, and Man in a Hole. And one of the overarching narratives that I think many of us are familiar with is the so-called hero's journey. Twitter genius Tom Morgan, he shares with us that of the 25 highest grossing movies of all time, 18 of them are the hero's journey. Somebody has a problem, finds a guide who suggests a plan, and they move forward and they succeed or they lose. Katniss, Luke Skywalker, Harry, Nemo, Simba, these are identical stories. Andy in The Devil Wears Prada, which I've seen more times than I'm going to admit, but it's a lot. Almost scene per scene, Andy's journey through the fashion world of New York and finding her guide, Nigel, is scene by scene, Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so what I'm asking you here with your Mad Libs is to imagine that you are the hero of your own journey, because that's just the way we are. And when we move from write to edit, we're going to pivot for you to move from hero to guide. All right? You're no longer Andy, you're Nigel. You're no longer Katniss, you're Haymitch. You're no longer Luke, you're Obi-Wan. All right. I've talked through this a little bit. Anybody got a really good Mad Lib they want to throw out there? Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
When I talk to my dog about money, I feel jealous because he has no idea what it is.
When I talk to my dog about money, I'm jealous because he is blissfully ignorant. Okay. You went left field with that one, buddy. All right, who else wants to just throw something out there into the world? Phil, I feel the need to pick on you because I know you're a goofball, but I won't pick on you. Anybody else have a Mad Lib they want to share? Yeah. Spending money on action figures. Spending money on action figures makes me feel good. I once referred to Phil's action figures as dolls, and he just started talking to me again like 2 weeks ago. This is an opportunity for you in a playful way to just think about some of the things that are important to you, and they're obviously an easy on-ramp to conversations with your clients about similar things. Now, we can, but are not going to go very much deeper. There's a lot to be said about unspoken rules that we grow up with. Rules like, we give lavish gifts for holidays, or we don't talk about, the fact that grandma seems rich and we might inherit a lot of money. You don't do those things, but it's never said. And then core beliefs, deep questions about our earliest money memories and where money fits into our broad narrative. If you flip it around, if you flip to the other page, you'll see that we put together a bunch of post-it notes. Now these can be very deep dives. I'm going to stop talking for another minute, and I'm going to ask everybody with their pad of paper to pick one of these. Just pick one and think about what a good answer is. Maybe even encourage you to take this back on the plane with you and explore this further. Before you are the guide, you must be the hero. This is your opportunity to search. One of my favorite questions, and there's so many different questions that we could ask to figure out who we are, especially as it relates to our complicated relationship with money, is the one on who is the hero of your money story and who is the villain. I'm not going to ask for your answer, but did anyone answer that one? One of the interesting, oh, okay, oh, okay. You've got the inside track. You have a PhD in psychology. It's interesting to think if that hero is not you. Most people have the hero of their story be them, but is there somebody else that is alongside you? Another question that's there is, what is your earliest money memory? Again, I'm not going to be personal. I'm not going to ask anyone to reveal anything, but I am curious, as you think about your earliest money memory, at what age did that take place? And was it a good memory or a bad memory? Anyone want to shout out what age, good or bad? 12? Good or bad? I'm sorry? Good. Okay. Thank you. 5 and bad? 7 and bad? 6 and bad? 6 and educational. Okay. Oh, yeah. 5 and frustrating. This is good. I said good, bad, and you're using your Mad Libs exercise to broaden your emotional palette. Brene would be very proud. I call her Brene like I know her. I'm obsessed with her, but I don't know her. What's that? Yeah. Last question on our right section. Remember, I hope everyone walks away with 4 words: ghostwriter, read, write, edit. Ghostwriter, read, write, edit. You are ghostwriters. The way to become a ghostwriter, a good ghostwriter, a good editor, is to think through this process that we're just sort of skipping a stone across today. So the last question of our right section is the following. How did your money story impact your choice to be a financial advisor? Or, if you're not a financial advisor, your choice to be in financial services. 30 seconds, I'll give you this. And I like this question. This question in our practice has prompted some amazing conversations. So if anyone does have the courage to throw something out, I'll invite that. Anybody want to give it a shot? Yeah, Julie. 100%? Excellent. That's all we needed, folks. 100%, 92%. All right, let's move on. What I just tried to do was share with you some pretty basic exercises on how we can come to terms with ourselves and our money story. We kind of can't ask our clients to go there if we haven't gone there ourselves. And again, the experience, especially with Josh in editing the book and some of what we're seeing in our daily practice, it really opens a small door to a huge room that we can explore in so many different ways. Let's wrap up with the editing section. Let me ask this. Do your clients trust you with their money story? I keep winnowing the time frame. I'll give you 15 seconds. And it's fair to gut response, never even thought about it. But there's a logical chain here that if we do believe that we're helping our clients to lead better lives, and that life is driven by a particular narrative, we have some attachment to that narrative. So do your clients trust you with your money story? I'm not going to have anyone answer because I think that's a pretty vulnerable question. This raises the issue of narrative trust and how we achieve that. And narrative trust goes both ways in terms of having a story to tell and listening to a particular story. What conditions can you create that give your clients permission and validation in the context of them writing their money story? This notion of permission, I think, is very important and I think under-discussed in our industry. What we see in getting to know a number of different advisors is that the advisor herself is not always having the conversation that she wants to have. And I firmly suspect, because I just talked to my friends and neighbors, when they talk to their financial advisor, they're not really talking about what they want to talk about, which is a life well lived. Am I going to be okay? How much is enough? Does money buy happiness? The big picture questions. Instead, financial advice can often be theater in which everyone is playing a part that they really don't want to. On one side of the table, you've got a market expert or a stock market strategist, and the other side of the table, you have someone pretending that they care. When in fact, what we want to get to is a place where the bigger questions, doesn't mean that the mechanics and the technical pieces aren't important, but the big questions are the ones that people want to talk to. So narrative trust is important, and how we achieve that is something that we need to earn authentically in the way that we show up for our clients. Now, we can mess it up in a number of ways, and I'll point out too what Brene Brown calls narrative tap out and narrative takeover. Narrative tap out is, they're telling me stuff, I'm not entirely listening, I'm tired, this is my third client meeting of the day, and I'm just not there. I'm not all the way there for them. By the way, I've met thousands of advisors over the last decade or so as I've been doing this. 99% of the advisors I meet seem to care deeply and authentically about their clients. That doesn't mean that you don't get tired. It doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, they're telling me the same story over and over again and they haven't done anything about it. And so narrative tap out is a real thing. The opposite experience is something that we see a lot, which is narrative takeover. Narrative takeover is that you make the story about you. And Scott and I had a good conversation about this the other day, and I learned a lot, and I appreciate it. It's so easy to make it about us, even when we think we're trying to help, because somebody comes to us with a problem, and we have a solution. And all of a sudden, we have shut down the space in which they are trying to articulate what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and what might be a way that they themselves, as their own hero of their story, not needing you as a guide, you kind of close the space by immediately, oh, I've seen this situation, we have a solution for that, and you've basically eliminated the space for them to figure it out on their own, and that's not particularly helpful. So let me wrap up by just talking about the features of a good editor. So I've written a few books, I've edited books, and so a list of things that apply to proper editing, but in parallel seem very, very apropos for financial planning. So a good editor absolutely establishes narrative trust. And to say we skimmed the surface is an understatement today in terms of what that narrative trust is and how you earn it. The second thing a really good editor does is they acknowledge, they validate the difficulty and the duration it takes to get your story straight, which itself is always a dynamic thing. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the writer Anne Lamott. She's a great writer, but she also writes instructively about writing. And I'd encourage all of you to Google a short essay that she wrote called Shitty First Drafts. Shitty First Drafts. It's in a book called Bird by Bird. And what Anne, who I also don't know, but call her by her first name, says is that the best writers start off with a mess. They just put stuff on the page and it doesn't add up to anything. But what happens over time is that they figure it out. They just get a bunch of words on the page. And so when we ask our clients about, well, what are your goals? We know actually that's a very hard question to answer. It's easier to say what we don't want because versus what we do want, in part because of how loss aversion works in our brain. But generally speaking, well, what do you want? That's hard and that's dynamic. And so creating the space to write shitty first drafts, just not of your life story, but of the financial plan. So plan as a verb instead of a noun. Going in that direction can be very, very helpful. What else does a good editor do? A good editor listens, and they listen to learn. A good editor asks good questions. What's a good question? A good question is an invitation, not an interrogation. My brilliant partner, Joy Leary, she talks about this all the time. I've learned so much from her. She's been a practicing psychologist for 20 years. Are your questions invitations to go to a better place? Or are they coming across as accusative, interrogatory, or something in that vein? And that's just something we ourselves have to come to terms with. The last thing on the editor's list that a good book editor or article editor would and could do is inspire agency and hope. They've got to be there right along the way. Remember, in our little story today of read, write, edit, you started as hero and then you moved to guide. In a financial planning context, much of what you do is a craft. It's building a better financial plan, estates and taxes and portfolios and investments and all that kind of stuff. Well, when we move to the guidance side, then the script changes a little bit, and we focus on agency and hope. Hear me? No. All right. I don't know what's going on with these mics. And so it's where I kind of want to leave things. I think we know that our clients look to us for different forms of validation, that they see us in a very good way as right alongside them in life's journey, and beyond the numbers and the sharp ratios and the good investments and the smart insurance policies. We are providing some sort of hope in the sense that that it's going to be okay. That's what they're worried about. That's the big question. Am I going to be okay? Are the people I love going to be okay? I was going to do a slide deck, but the sunlight and everything makes that basically impossible. And my only regret for that slide deck not being here is that I had a 45-second clip of my favorite scene from my favorite movie, The Shawshank Redemption. Toward the end, when Andy had already gone, and by the way, what's the town that he... Zihuatanejo. Andy's in a field behind the wall. I'm sorry, Red is in the field, and then that little tin thing, and he pulls out a letter. I'm not going to read you the whole letter. It's our loss because of technology and sunlight. But he said one thing that has always stuck with me over the 100 times that I've seen the movie. And he said that hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. You provide your clients hope. And I hope today was helpful to you just a little bit in thinking about how you can be ghostwriter and editor of a better version of your client's story. Thank you.